I'm Emma, 29 years old, and 4 weeks ago my mother liquidated the lakefront property my late grandmother designated for me, so my younger brother could enjoy an overseas getaway. She actually stood there, met my gaze directly, and declared, "You're financially stable with excellent employment," while he chuckled and remarked that his need for relaxation outweighed my requirement for shelter. The reality hit when a banking notification appeared on my monitor during office hours. An alert regarding a substantial six-figure wire transfer connected to real estate my grandmother had registered under my ownership. Initially, I assumed this was an error, perhaps a system malfunction. However, upon examining the enclosed documentation and discovering the transaction had already finalized, my heart sank. My signature appeared nowhere on any paperwork. My grandmother had repeatedly assured me that location would serve as my financial cushion, the single asset nobody could strip away from me. Yet somehow my mother succeeded in converting it into airfare and 7 days at a beachfront paradise for her preferred offspring. While they broadcasted tropical beverages and scenic horizons across social media, I mentally reviewed every summer memory in that residence, and every instance I'd been instructed to demonstrate understanding and release grievances for the sake of kinship. This occasion was different. I contacted my attorney. 14 days afterward, a single correspondence was dispatched containing 4 straightforward words that transformed their circumstances entirely. You possess 48 hours. You likely believe your relatives would never transgress such boundaries. Remain with me until the conclusion, and subsequently inform me what actions you would have pursued in my circumstances. When the electronic message completed loading, and I recognized it wasn't a technical glitch, I seized my vehicle keys and proceeded directly to my mother's residential area without even shutting my laptop. Throughout the entire drive, my hands trembled against the steering mechanism. I continuously reassured myself there must exist some rational explanation, potentially a mistake at the title agency, conceivably a clerical mishap. Then I navigated onto her street and observed the vibrant crimson-soled placard positioned before the modest single-story dwelling she'd been boasting about renovating for months. Momentarily, I nearly released a laugh, because it seemed like fate was mocking me with all these sold notifications, while the sole possession I genuinely valued had just been liquidated without my awareness. Marcus answered the entrance before I could announce my presence, shoeless, clutching his mobile device with a partially consumed beverage in his opposite hand. He was examining photographs of himself at a coastal location, bare-chested with an foolish expression. Waves positioned behind him that weren't the gray Pacific waters, but some brilliant azure resort setting. "Hey there, sis," he stated as though we were simply reconnecting. "Did you observe the images?" Thailand was absolutely incredible. I desperately required that mental reset following this year. I pushed beyond him into the main room and inquired, "Did Mother inform you regarding the origin of those funds?" He paused briefly, then displayed indifference. "It's household finances, Emma. You don't even reside near the waterfront. You inhabit your compact urban apartment with your financial spreadsheets. You've secured stable employment, comprehensive benefits, everything. I've been struggling financially. I required a vacation." My jaw tightened. "She liquidated the residence grandmother registered in my ownership," I stated. "My ownership, Marcus. That represented the singular item she bequeathed to me." The garage entrance opened and my mother entered, still wearing her professional blazer from a property showing, a collection of promotional materials gripped in one hand, and her cellular phone positioned between her shoulder and ear. She froze upon observing me. "I'll reconnect shortly," she mumbled into the device, disconnecting before providing whoever was conversing an opportunity to respond. "Emma, sweetheart, what brings you here during midday?" "You sold Grandmother Patricia's residence," I stated. I dispensed with pleasantries. I received the transfer notification. I examined the finalization documentation. My signature is absent. She exhaled as though I represented a problematic client, not her offspring. "Okay. Initially, maintain composure," she remarked, positioning her materials on the kitchen surface. "Nobody executed anything to damage you. Your grandmother bequeathed that location so this household would maintain stability. You're already stable. You work in technology. You possess savings. You're not the individual maximizing credit accounts simply to maintain utilities and groceries. Marcus scoffed from the sofa. Yeah, she's completely fine, Mother. She simply dislikes when we finally receive a fortunate break. I pivoted toward him. A fortunate break? That break constituted my inheritance. That represented my financial safety net when the market collapses or I experience unemployment. It was the location grandmother guaranteed would perpetually exist for me. Mother advanced closer, reducing her vocal volume as though reasoning with a juvenile. Listen, your brother's experienced difficult circumstances. He's battled depression. He's experienced burnout. He's labored night shifts and still cannot advance financially. I am thousands in debt from assisting him and attempting to maintain this residence. The property market is ruthless. My commission earnings fluctuate wildly. The lakefront property was simply sitting vacant. You never visit. Your grandmother would have desired us to utilize it to assist him. By liquidating it without informing me, I inquired. By fabricating my authorization, you didn't even telephone. Mother rolled her eyes marginally. I didn't fabricate anything. I utilized the power of attorney I already possessed. Remember when your grandmother was ill and I managed everything? I still retained the documents. I executed as her representative and transferred the funds. It's entirely lawful. It's family. I anticipated you'd comprehend. I experienced something cold settling in my chest. That power of attorney terminated when she deceased, I stated. You recognize that, correct? You cannot simply continue utilizing it like a coupon that never expires. For the initial instance, something appeared across her features that resembled fear. It vanished equally rapidly, replaced with irritation. You're overreacting, Emma. You don't require that residence. You're fine. Your brother required a break before he completely deteriorated. I'm drowning in debt. I will compensate you eventually. We'll establish something gradually. Marcus nodded, as though that resolved it. Exactly. We're family. Why are you rendering this awkward? I observed both of them. My mother in her professional blazer, and my brother in his vacation attire, and recognized they genuinely believed I represented the problem here. Every occasion I'd suppressed things as a youngster. Every instance I'd been instructed to permit him the larger portion, the superior gift, the additional assistance because he requires it more. All of it descended on my shoulders simultaneously. You didn't simply liquidate a residence, I stated quietly. You demonstrated precisely where I exist in this household hierarchy. Mother opened her mouth, probably to instruct me not to be dramatic, but I was already turning toward the entrance. Where are you proceeding? She called after me. I didn't glance backward to converse with someone who actually respects what grandmother bequeathed me, I stated. My attorney. I didn't return to my apartment immediately. I remained in my vehicle outside my mother's residence sufficiently long for the engine to grow cold, staring at the sold placard down the street and scrolling through previous emails until I located the one I was seeking. Rebecca Martinez. Subject heading: If your relatives ever mishandle your inheritance, you know who to contact. She'd composed it as humor years earlier after we reconnected at a professional event, but right then, it seemed like a challenge. Rebecca and I met freshman year in a statistics course back when I contemplated I might follow my grandmother into education. She'd proceeded to law school and concluded specializing in consumer and financial fraud in Seattle. I worked with data. She worked with documentation that could devastate people's lives if they were careless. I initiated the call before I could dissuade myself. She answered on the second ring. Hey, stranger. Everything all right? My mother liquidated my grandmother's lakefront property, I stated. My voice sounded monotone, even to me. And she utilized an expired power of attorney, didn't inform me, and used the funds to send my brother to Thailand and settle her credit accounts. I just observed the closing documents. My name is nowhere. There was a pause, the kind where you can sense someone transition from friend mode to professional mode. Do you possess the trust documents? She inquired. Any will? Any paperwork your grandmother established before she passed? Yeah, I stated. Grandmother Patricia maintained everything in this green binder. Tabs, sticky notes, all of it. It's in my apartment. Good, Rebecca stated. Retrieve it and the banking email. Meet me at the cafe on Pine Street in an hour. We'll review everything. An hour afterward, I was sliding into a booth across from her, the green binder on the table between us next to a plastic basket of bread and spreads. She'd arrived straight from court, still in a navy blazer, hair secured back, eyes sharp in a manner I'd always admired. "Okay," she stated, opening the binder. "Walk me through what you know." I told her about the email alert, the 6-figure transfer, the sale I never authorized. I told her about my mother's explanation, about the power of attorney from when grandmother was sick, about how she insisted it was all lawful because we're family. Rebecca didn't interrupt much. Her pen moved rapidly over her legal pad, her eyes scanning the trust documents my grandmother had meticulously labeled. "Here," she stated, finally, tapping a page. "This is the living trust your grandmother established. Observe this section. It designates you as the sole beneficiary of the lakefront property and the investment account after her death. That means once she passed, this trust became irrevocable. Your mother doesn't get to simply decide to liquidate assets because life is challenging." She flipped to another tab and retrieved the power of attorney. "And this," she stated, "was valid while your grandmother was alive and incapacitated. Right here, it states the authority terminates upon her death. Your mother utilizing this to authorize a sale after your grandmother deceased is not just questionable. It's fraud. She misrepresented her authority to the title company and the buyer." My stomach twisted. "So she didn't just transgress a boundary emotionally?" I stated quietly. "She actually violated the law." Rebecca nodded. "She used expired authority to sell an asset that legally belonged to you, then redirected the proceeds for her own benefit and your brother's. That's misappropriation of trust property. It's civil fraud at minimum, maybe more, depending on how extensive this goes and what the district attorney feels like pursuing. But let's focus on what we can control." She pulled the banking email closer and documented the transaction identification. The sale proceeds went into her account. "Yeah," I stated. The alert showed the escrow company wired the funds into an account with her name. I verified my own accounts just to be certain. Nothing hit mine. Rebecca leaned back thinking. "Okay, here's what we're going to execute," she stated. We sent her a demand letter. It will outline exactly what she did. The terms of the trust, the expiration of the power of attorney, the sale, the transfer of funds, the use of that money for non-beneficiary purposes. We give her 48 hours from receipt to either return the full amount into a separate account we control or sign an agreement accepting liability with a concrete repayment plan secured by her remaining assets. 48 hours, I repeated. It sounded brutal, and also in a dark way satisfying. "Why so rapid?" "Because she already spent a portion of it," Rebecca stated. "Vacation, credit accounts, whatever. The longer we wait, the more disappears, the more leverage we lose. 48 hours sends a message. It tells her this isn't a family squabble. It's a legal emergency. If she ignores it or refuses, we file a civil suit for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conversion, whatever sticks best. We can ask for the value of the residence, interest, and attorney's fees given her debt. That could push her into bankruptcy." I stared at the neat lines of my grandmother's handwriting in the margins of the trust documents. Little notes like "for Emma's future" and "must protect this." My throat tightened. "If I do this," I stated, "I'm basically destroying what's left of my family." Rebecca softened just a little. "Emma, she already ignited the match when she sold your residence," she stated. "You're just deciding whether to stand there and let it burn you, or whether you're going to extinguish the fire. You don't have to make this decision to please anyone. You make it to honor what your grandmother wanted and to protect yourself." I took a breath and felt something inside me click into place, like a lock turning. I'd spent my entire life suppressing unfairness in the name of maintaining peace. The peace was gone. "Send the letter," I stated. 48 hours. After that, we go to court. Rebecca smiled without humor and pulled a printed template from her folder, already typing my details into the top. "Good," she stated. "Then let's give your mother and brother a deadline they can't dismiss." 2 weeks afterward, Rebecca slid a printed copy of the letter across her desk to me, before she hit send on the email version. It was 3 pages of calm, precise language that somehow felt sharper than any shout. It outlined everything in black and white. The terms of my grandmother's trust, my status as sole beneficiary of the lakefront property, the fact that my grandmother's death terminated my mother's authority under the power of attorney, the dates of the sale and transfer, the amounts, even screenshots of my brother's vacation posts to show where some of the funds had gone. At the bottom in bold was the deadline. Recipient has 48 hours from confirmed receipt of this notice to remit the full amount of the sale proceeds into the designated account or execute a signed repayment agreement secured by current assets. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. Once I send this, you can't reverse the bell, Rebecca stated quietly. I swallowed and nodded. Ring it. She clicked send. Certified mail went out the same afternoon. My mother received the email first. I was at my desk the next morning staring at a spreadsheet that might as well have been static when my phone illuminated with her name. I let it ring twice before answering. Emma? What is this? She snapped. No greeting. Her voice was high and thin, the way it got when deals collapsed and she needed someone to blame. I just received some ridiculous letter from your attorney talking about fraud and lawsuits. You're threatening to drag your own mother into court. I'm asking you to return what you stole, I stated, keeping my voice even. You sold a residence that wasn't yours to sell using authority you didn't have. That's not a misunderstanding, Mother. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Stole? My goodness, listen to yourself. It's family finances. Your grandmother wanted that residence to take care of us. I've been drowning, Emma. Do you think I enjoy being behind on every bill, getting calls from collectors, watching your brother fall apart because he can't catch a break? So you fixed it by committing fraud? I stated. By emptying out the one thing she left me? She ignored that. You're fine, she insisted. You have a salary, you have a retirement account, you have health insurance, your brother has nothing. I've been using credit accounts just to keep him afloat. That trip was supposed to clear his head so he could start fresh. And yes, I paid down some accounts because I was about to lose my mind. I did what I had to do for this family. And now you and some stranger in a blazer think you'll scare me with threats. She's not a stranger. She's my attorney, I stated. And she's not threatening you. She's outlining consequences. You had 48 hours to start making this right. 48 hours? My mother repeated, spitting the words out. What do you think I'm sitting on? A secret vault of cash. Most of the funds are gone. Okay. Resorts and plane tickets don't refund everything. And the accounts were already past due when I paid them. I can't just magically give you 100-something thousand back by Friday. My chest tightened, but not from sympathy. It was like watching someone admit they'd burned your residence down but expected a hug because they were cold. Then you shouldn't have spent it, I stated. I didn't force you to sell anything. You chose to. You chose him again at my expense again. This time there are laws involved. She went quiet for a second, then shifted tactics. You are really going to do this to your own mother? She asked, voice wobbling. Take me to court. Ruin my credit. Drag our name through the mud. Over what? Some empty building on the lake your grandmother left sitting there like a monument. I am your family, Emma. That girl in the suit isn't. When she's moved on to her next client, I'm still the one who carried you for 9 months. I had heard that line my whole life. Pulled out whenever she needed me to shut up and fall back in line. This time it just made me tired. You used that building as your personal ATM, I stated. You didn't talk to me. You didn't ask. You assumed I'd do what I always do and suppress it because we're family. I'm not doing that anymore. A second later, another notification flashed on my screen. Marcus texting. Mother kept talking in my ear, but I glanced at the messages. Seriously? You sent Mother some legal crap. You're losing it. Then another. You know the money's gone, right? It was barely enough to cover stuff anyway. I needed that trip. I scrolled back up, seeing photos I'd already muted. Infinity pools, cocktails with tiny umbrellas, expensive headphones in first class. All of it suddenly looking like crime scene evidence instead of memories. Look, my mother was saying, I can give you something. I can start with a few thousand next month, maybe more after I close the Anderson listing. We can set up some kind of plan, I'm not saying I won't pay you back. I'm just saying this 60-second countdown doomsday letter thing is insane. Cancel the lawsuit. We'll handle this like adults. Adults don't hide sales contracts from each other, I stated. This isn't a game show. The 48 hours aren't my idea of drama. They're my attorney's way of giving you a chance before the judge gets involved. If you're serious about paying me back, talk to her. Sign what she sends. Put it in writing with collateral. Otherwise, we go to court. Collateral, she repeated, outraged. You want to take my residence now? You want to take the roof over your brother's head? I didn't say anything about taking it, I replied. But if you can't pay what you owe, the court will look at what you have. That's how this works for everyone, not just strangers. You don't get a different system because you're my mother. She started to cry then. Loud, dramatic sobs that used to tear me apart when I was younger. You're heartless, she choked out. I can't believe I raised someone who would do this to me. After everything I've sacrificed, this is how you repay me. I closed my eyes for a second, feeling the old guilt rise and then fade as quickly as it came. You didn't raise me alone, I stated quietly. Grandmother did a lot of the heavy lifting. She's the one who left me something, and I'm finally acting like it matters. If you want to fix this, call Rebecca. If not, I'll see you in court. I hung up before she could answer. More texts from Marcus rolled in, alternating between jokes, insults, and half-hearted attempts to guilt me into backing off. I set the phone face down on my desk and looked at the green binder still sitting there, my grandmother's handwriting peeking out from under the cover. For the first time since this started, I let myself imagine my mother not as a victim of her circumstances, but as an adult who had made choice after choice until she ended up here. She decided my brother's vacation mattered more than my inheritance. Now she was about to find out what it felt like when someone else finally said no. The 48 hours passed without a call from Rebecca, saying my mother had done anything. So I called her instead. She picked up with a sigh that told me everything. She had another attorney look at the letter, Rebecca stated. He replied that your mother disputes any wrongdoing and believes the sale was within her authority as your grandmother's representative. No offer, no repayment, nothing. I stared out my apartment window at the drizzle. So she's doubling down, I stated. She is, Rebecca replied, which means we're done asking nicely. Next step is filing the lawsuit. Once we do, she'll have deadlines she can't guilt trip or ignore. My stomach turned, but under it was something solid. File it, I stated. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, all of it. I want the court to see exactly what she did. Okay, Rebecca stated. I'll draft the complaint and have it served. But if we're going to war, I want everything. Screenshots, texts, emails, anything that shows what she knew and when. I thought of Marcus's messages, the casual way he'd admitted the funds were gone and that he needed the trip. I can get more, I stated. From Marcus, too. He knows more than he's saying. Rebecca paused. Then talk to him one more time, she stated. In person if you can. People get very honest when they think they're still winning. That evening, I drove to my mother's residence. Marcus's car was in the driveway, music thumping faintly. He opened the door with a frown. Wow, you're brave showing up here, he stated. Mother's been wrecked since your little legal grenade. Is she home? I asked. No, showing a townhouse, he stated. Why? Good, I stated. I came to talk to you. We ended up in the kitchen, him leaning against the counter, me at the table where I used to complete homework while grandmother corrected my mathematics. If this is about you suing Mother, I already told you, he stated. It's pathetic. You have everything, and you're acting like we robbed you at gunpoint. I ignored that. How long did you really know about the residence? I asked. Not just that Mother was thinking about it, but that she was actually selling it using grandmother's expired power of attorney. His jaw tightened. What does that matter? It matters, I stated. You don't just wake up with first-class tickets. She talked to you. He exhaled. She told me months ago she was trying to unlock the residence, he admitted. Said grandmother put everything in your name because you're the responsible one, but that you don't even live there and don't appreciate what it could do for the rest of us. She said she had papers. that she had authority as grandmother's representative, that it wasn't really wrong, just bending things. And that didn't sound bad to you at all? I asked. He shrugged. I asked if you knew. She said you just make it complicated, that you always think worst case. She said she'd handle it and talk to you when things calmed down. Then the sale went through. The funds hit, and she told me to pack a bag. He gave a short, bitter laugh. I figured if she was willing to go that far, it must be legitimate enough. I'm not an attorney, Emma. I just wanted out for a week. Did she ever say the power of attorney might not be valid anymore? That grandmother being deceased changed anything? He hesitated, torn between protecting her and protecting himself. She said something like, "Technically these things have timelines, but nobody checks that closely," he finally muttered. Said the title company just wants signatures and clean numbers, not a lecture on when grandmother deceased. She joked half of real estate is knowing which rules actually matter. I thought she was just venting. The words landed like a gavel in my head. You realize that's her admitting she knew it was wrong? I stated. She didn't accidentally grab the wrong form. She gambled no one would look. Marcus flinched. What do you want me to say? He snapped. That I should have stopped her. Called you. I didn't. I wanted the trip. I wanted a break from feeling like a loser every time I opened my banking application. So I shut up. You happy? No, I stated, but I am clear. I pulled out my phone and opened our text thread, scrolling to his messages about the funds being gone and him needing the trip. I'm suing her, I stated. That's not a threat. It's happening. And if she drags you into it, if you stonewall, that gets ugly. You can keep pretending you're just a passenger, or you can help fix it. How? He asked. By telling the truth, I stated. By giving my attorney your messages, screenshots, anything that shows she knew the power of attorney was expired, and that she sold the residence anyway. That she told you I'd say no, so she cut me out. If you cooperate, Rebecca can keep the focus on her choices. If you don't, and this blows up bigger, I can't promise a judge will see you as just an innocent bystander. He sank into a chair, rubbing his face. You're asking me to testify against Mother, he stated. I'm asking you to stop lying for her, I corrected. You can still love her, but she made choices that hurt you too. You're the one stuck with her mess when she can't get approved for anything. Do you really think she'll start making better decisions if no one ever holds her accountable? He sat there for a long moment, then looked up. If I send you the screenshots, he stated slowly, and tell your attorney what I told you, can she keep me out of the worst of it? She can make it clear you're cooperating, I stated. That you didn't sign anything and didn't profit long term, but I'm not gonna lie for you. I'm done being the only one who takes the hit. Marcus swallowed and nodded. Fine, he stated. I'll send them. Not because I'm suddenly on your side, but because I'm tired of feeling like I'm in the middle of a car crash I can't stop. On my way out, my phone buzzed. A stream of images and screenshots from Marcus forwarded without comment. In the driveway, I forwarded everything to Rebecca with one line. He knew. She knew. Use what you need. For the first time since it started, I didn't feel like I was the one destroying the family. I felt like I'd finally stepped out of the blast zone and handed the truth to someone who knew exactly what to do with it. By the time we received a court date, the story didn't feel like mine anymore. It belonged to the caption on the filings, the docket number the clerk called. Rebecca sat beside me at counsel table with a slim binder of exhibits. Across the aisle, my mother sat next to her attorney, jaw tight. Marcus hovered behind her in the first row, swallowed by an oversized jacket. When the judge came in and we all stood, my knees trembled once and then steadied. This wasn't a family fight I could be guilted out of. This was a room where facts were supposed to matter. Rebecca started with the trust. She walked the judge through the language like it was a recipe. As the court can observe, she stated, tapping a highlighted paragraph, upon Ms. Sullivan's death, the lakefront property, and the associated investment account became irrevocably held for the benefit of her granddaughter, my client, Emma Foster. The defendant, Ms. Linda Foster, is not a beneficiary under this trust. She had no ownership interest in the property after Miss Sullivan's death. My mother's attorney tried to argue that my grandmother intended the residence to help the whole family, that she always talked about wanting everyone taken care of. The judge listened, then pointed to the page. "Intent is expressed here," he stated. "The beneficiary is clearly identified." Rebecca moved on to the power of attorney. "Your Honor, this document granted Ms. Foster authority to act on her mother's behalf while Ms. Sullivan was alive and incapacitated," she stated. Here in the termination clause, it explicitly states that this authority ends upon the principal's death. Nevertheless, Ms. Foster used this expired document over a year after Ms. Sullivan passed to authorize the sale. The judge looked over his glasses at my mother. "Ms. Foster, did you understand that your authority under this power of attorney ended when your mother deceased?" My mother's attorney jumped in, saying she wasn't a legal expert, that it was an honest misunderstanding. Rebecca stood. "If it pleased the court, we'll let Ms. Foster explain in her own words." On the stand, my mother repeated her story. The bills, Marcus struggling, my grandmother saying family comes first. She claimed she thought the power of attorney still worked as long as the residence was in the trust. "I wasn't trying to steal from my daughter," she stated. "I was trying to keep us afloat." Rebecca waited, then approached with one printed page. "Do you recognize this text message?" she asked. My mother frowned, then nodded. "Yes." Dated 3 weeks before closing, Rebecca stated. I'll read one line. "You wrote technically these power of attorney things have timelines, but nobody checks that closely. Title just wants signatures and clean numbers, not a lecture on when grandmother deceased. Did I read that correctly?" My mother's eyes flicked toward Marcus. "I was venting," she stated. "I didn't mean. Did you send that message?" Rebecca cut in. "Yes," my mother whispered. "So at the time you authorized the sale documents, you knew there were timelines on the authority you were using," Rebecca stated, "and you chose to proceed anyway, expecting no one would check." My mother didn't answer. The silence said enough. Rebecca called me next. I testified about summers at the lakefront property, about my grandmother's green binder and her notes saying for Emma's future. I described opening the banking email, confronting my mother, hearing her say I didn't need the residence because I had a good job. Rebecca entered Marcus's screenshots, the bragging vacation texts, the admission that the funds were gone, the messages where he repeated my mother's line that I just make it complicated. Marcus took the stand too. He looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him, but he answered. "Yes." My mother had joked about title companies not checking dates. "Yes?" She said I'd say no if she asked. Yes, she knew the residence was supposed to be mine. When my mother's attorney tried to paint him as clueless, Marcus surprised me. "I might not know the law," he stated, "but I knew if it was really no big deal, Mother would have told Emma up front." She didn't. After closing arguments, the judge stepped out, then came back with a decision that sounded like a verdict on years of history. He found my mother had breached her fiduciary duty, misused expired authority, and converted trust property for personal use. He quoted my grandmother's trust out loud, emphasizing that the plan had always been clear. Accordingly, this court orders that Ms. Linda Foster is liable to Ms. Emma Foster in the amount of the full fair market value of the lakefront property at the time of sale, plus interest from the date of closing, plus reasonable attorney's fees and costs. He stated the number he read made my mother's hand fly to her mouth. Then he added that her using the proceeds for her debts and her son's vacation did not turn this into a harmless family misunderstanding. It remained misappropriation of my assets. My mother's attorney asked about payment plans and hardship, about protecting her primary residence. The judge explained, patient but firm, that if she couldn't pay, enforcement and possibly bankruptcy would follow. Her residence, her accounts, her commissions, all of it could be reached like anyone else's. In the hallway afterward, she rounded on me, eyes red and wild. "Are you happy?" she hissed. "You just ruined your own mother. I will lose my residence. I will lose everything. And it'll be because my daughter decided funds mattered more than family." I met her gaze and didn't look away. "You didn't lose everything because I went to court," I stated. "You lost it when you sold something that wasn't yours and assumed I'd let it slide." I didn't make you maximize credit accounts. I didn't make you send Marcus on a 5-star trip. Those were your choices. Marcus stood a few steps away, looking between us like he finally understood there was no safe middle. Emma, what happens now? He asked quietly. Now I enforce the judgment, I stated. The system does what it does. You keep working. I keep working. Mother talks to a bankruptcy attorney. We all live with what we did. My mother shook her head like she couldn't process that I was calm. You'll regret this, she whispered. One day when I'm gone, and you realize you destroyed our family over a lakefront property. I thought of my grandmother's careful notes, of every time I'd been pushed aside because I could handle it. Grandmother trusted me to protect what she left, I stated. I'd regret it more if I let you erase her wishes, because you couldn't stop treating me like an emergency fund. This isn't about a lakefront property. It's about you thinking my boundaries were optional. Rebecca touched my elbow, and we walked toward the exit, the judgment in her bag feeling heavy and final. Behind us, my mother's voice rose into a choked curse. But for once, I didn't turn back. I'd spent my life orbiting her crisis. For the first time, I was walking straight ahead toward a future she didn't control. In the months after the judgment, the fallout came in waves. First were the letters. Thick envelopes started showing up at my mother's residence from creditors and attorneys. Each one another reminder that the court's decision was not a bad dream she could ignore. When she couldn't make the payments the judgment required, the conversation shifted from how will she pay to what will be sold. Her residence went on the market a few months later, not with her smiling face on the sign this time, but with a bank's logo. The woman who used to brag about closing difficult deals was suddenly the one being forced out of a dwelling she thought she'd never lose. Marcus texted me the day the movers came, sending a photo of the empty living room with the caption, "This is really happening." I didn't reply. I didn't gloat either. It just felt like gravity finally doing what it always does. My mother ended up in a small rental across town, a beige apartment in a building with thin walls and a strict no-pets policy. Her credit was wrecked, her accounts frozen, her commissions garnished. The life she'd built on maxed-out promises and borrowed time collapsed down to exactly what she could actually afford, which wasn't much without someone else to quietly fix things for her. Marcus took on more hours at the warehouse to cover his share of the new rent. Music gigs became side income, not an excuse to avoid real work. He stopped posting about vacations and started posting about overtime and cheap dinners with coworkers. We weren't suddenly close, but every so often he'd send a late-night text that sounded more like the kid I grew up with, and less like the golden child I'd spent my 20s resenting. I get it more now. He wrote once. What it means when people say someone always pays. Turns out it was you for a long time. I'm sorry for that. I stared at that message for a long time before answering. I'm glad you're starting to see it, I replied. That's your work, not mine. Keep going. On my side of town, life didn't magically turn into a fairy tale. I still worked my 9 to 5, still dealt with deadlines and meetings and days where the coffee wasn't strong enough. But the judgment funds, once they started to come in through structured payments and seized assets, didn't feel like a lottery win. It felt like something my grandmother had tried to give me twice, and I had finally managed to hold on to. I didn't rush to buy another lakefront property. Instead, I sat down with a financial planner and set up an investment account in my grandmother's name, a fund I could grow slowly and use partly for my future, partly for something she would have loved. On Saturdays, when the weather wasn't completely miserable, I started hosting little workshops in a community room at the library. It started with a couple friends who'd heard what happened and wanted to know how to keep their own families from blowing up their finances. Then friends of friends showed up. Then a few strangers who'd seen a flyer. I talked about basics, what a trust is, why you should read what you sign, how to set boundaries around funds with people you love. I told them in general terms about a grandmother who tried to protect her granddaughter, and a mother who thought those protections were optional. I watched people nod, cry, laugh in recognition. It was the closest thing to healing I'd felt in a long time. A year after the court date, a therapist the court had recommended for family reconciliation reached out to see if I wanted to schedule a joint session with my mother and Marcus. I almost said no on instinct. Then I thought about all the nights I'd lay awake wondering if I was the villain in some version of this story my mother told herself. I made the appointment. Not for her, but for me. In the session, my mother did what she always does at first. She cried. She talked about the bills, the fear, the way she felt abandoned by everyone, including her own mother. She said I'd turned my back on her when she needed me most. For the first time, I didn't take that as a cue to rush in and reassure her. I let her words sit there, then told my version out loud, in front of a neutral third party who didn't owe either of us anything. I talked about being the responsible one, the one who always got less because I could handle it, the one no one thought to protect, while they scrambled to save my brother from every consequence. I talked about the residence, the trust, the green binder, the sick feeling when I saw those sale papers without my name. When I finished, my mother didn't suddenly transform into a humble, enlightened person, but she did go quiet. And for the first time, she stated, "I knew you'd be okay, so I didn't think about what it would do to you. I just thought about how scared I was." It wasn't enough to erase what she'd done. It was enough for me to understand that her selfishness came from weakness, not from some grand plan to destroy me. I told her I forgave her for my sake. Not because what she did was forgivable in the usual sense, but because I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life letting her choices live rent-free in my head. Forgiveness for me didn't look like moving her into my apartment or co-signing her next lease. It looked like boundaries. It looked like holiday texts instead of holidays together, like answering some calls and letting others go to voicemail. It looked like sending her information about credit counseling and then stepping back so she could decide whether to use it. I stopped trying to fix her. I started choosing myself on purpose. If there's anything I took from all of this, besides a stack of legal documents and a permanently complicated relationship with the word family, it's this: love and accountability are not opposites. You can care about someone and still refuse to let them steal from you, lie to you, or rewrite your future to clean up their past. You can honor the people who tried to protect you by finally protecting yourself. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do, even when it looks like revenge from the outside, is to stop being the person everyone assumes will quietly absorb the damage. Maybe you've never had your mother sell your residence to fund your brother's vacation. But if you've ever felt like the responsible one who keeps paying the bill for everyone else's mistakes, you know a piece of this story. If you were in my place, would you have sent that 48-hour letter, or would you have walked away and tried to forget the property ever existed?